Good evening, everyone. It's great to see you here. I'm Lori Fogarty. I'm the director here at the Oakland Museum of California. Thank you. And we're really thrilled to have you here at the museum, and especially, of course, to be the venue for this conversation, this district download with Congresswoman Barbara Lee. Absolutely. You may know us as a museum of art, history, and natural sciences about California, and especially focused on Oakland. But we also see ourselves as a gathering place, as a site of community dialogue, as really a venue and a platform for the kind of conversations we're looking forward to tonight. So we hope that you'll enjoy tonight, and we hope you'll also come back to the museum. And now I want to just say how thrilled I am to be talking tonight with Congresswoman Barbara Lee. She has been a great advocate and friend to this institution. She actually nominated us last year, and we were awarded the National Medal for Museum Service, given by the, it was fantastic, thanks to her recognition and her advocacy. And not only is she such an advocate for the arts and culture and so many other causes and needs and issues here in Oakland and the East Bay, but she is really a friend to the arts and culture all across the country. She's championed support for the arts and culture and understands the importance actually of history and of thinking about history in the context of what we learn from it in order to inspire a more vibrant and equitable future. Absolutely. Yeah, let's hear it for history. And with that, it is my great pleasure to welcome to the stage Congresswoman Barbara Lee.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
I didn't even tell her to wear the Oakland Museum branded color of orange, but she did, which we really appreciate. I was a little self-conscious about wearing red, but that's what I had this morning, so. You comfortable? You ready?
Great.
Good. So what we're going to do is I'm going to ask a few questions. Congresswoman Lee is going to begin with a few remarks. I'll ask a few questions. We have some special awards that the Congresswoman will recognize and awardees here tonight. And then we'll be having some questions that you all have sent in when you RSVP'd. So I'll let you begin.
Well, good evening. First, Lori, let me thank you for allowing us to be in this beautiful venue, for my beautiful constituents who are the most enlightened and progressive constituents in the whole country. Thank you very much. Also, let me just say, this Oakland Museum is really not only a local and national state treasure, but it's a national treasure. And I was thinking this evening about one of my bills that is called Equity in the Arts, because we think that the arts really provides a pathway to social justice and equity, right? And so we want grants from all of our federal agencies to provide for our nonprofits and for our museums the funding to really do a lot of what you're doing here, because you certainly are providing the glimpse into what life was and what life can be for all of us. So thank you again, Lori, really much. I really am proud of this. Also, I'm glad to be home. This is really a download night because we have done a lot of work, and I want to take a moment to thank my staff who are here. Give them a round of applause. We have our Washington staff is here with us. Because, you know, my staff works for you. They work 24/7. They do a lot of casework, immigration casework, housing, passport, you name it, 24/7. And so just know that they are phenomenal. They do their job. They all are public servants. And they help put this together, and I really appreciate them. And you need to get to know them. And if any of you have any constituent cases that you'd like to talk about, do that at the end of the download, because they're there to take notes and to follow up with you. Let me say a couple of things, because it's been quite a remarkable time in Washington, D.C. with the Biden-Harris administration, delivering for the American people, delivering for our communities. And there are a couple of wins I just want to mention in terms of the big picture. The bipartisan infrastructure bill, for example, that was a $108 billion federal investment. And we've seen several of those federal dollars come into our district for infrastructure issues like bike lanes and pedestrian improvements. And also, you know, the issues around the freeway, 980. Well, we received about $600,000 in the Reconnect Communities initiative of the Biden administration, which is really important because we know the impacts of I-90 and what it has done, especially to communities in West Oakland, and how it has divided our city up. And so one of the grants under the infrastructure bill helps us now to move forward and study and see what we can do to reconnect our community, and that's a big deal for us here in this district. Also, the CHIPS Act, that was $280 billion in new funding to boost domestic research and manufacturing in the United States, to bring jobs back to the United States, and to create new manufacturing jobs here, of course, in my congressional district. We have a company, Amash, it's a really great African-American owned company who will be part of this, hopefully, if this gets done the proper way, to begin to manufacture chips here, right here in the 12th Congressional District. So it deserves a round of applause. And of course, the climate crisis is here. We know, you see Maui, we know from the wildfires, look at the floods here, the tropical floods here in California, look at what's taking place in Florida. There's so many issues around climate, and it's important to understand that that's a priority for myself in terms of the climate emergency, which it is, but it's also a priority for the Biden-Harris administration. And in the Inflation Reduction Act, which of course was to reduce the cost of living and inflation, but just recently, I hope you heard about the initiative to begin to reduce the cost of prescription drugs. So we had to put that in that bill because that definitely is a cost of living issue. And in fact, now the first 10 drugs, we need more, but we could only get to where we got in this bill through the negotiations. But these will be some really huge benefits to have Medicare to be able to negotiate the lowering the price of prescription drugs for Medicare recipients. But we've got to do more medications and more drugs, but we also have to expand it now to the general public, because this is Medicare recipients only. But that's a great first start. And so that's just been recently announced. So I hope you follow that carefully, because it's something that the pharmaceutical companies are pushing back on naturally, and unfortunately there may be some lawsuits. But that's not going to stop us. We're going to keep going, and we're going to get this done. And so that was part of the Inflation Reduction Act. The corrupt Supreme Court, you know, you know, it is. The corporate corruption culture has taken over the Supreme Court, the highest court of the land. And yes, I did call for Clarence Thomas to resign. I think he should. But there's legislation to rein in the Supreme Court in terms of code of ethics, which they need to have. Every public official should have that. Also, I support the legislation to expand the Supreme Court to 13 justices. You know, the Constitution doesn't require any specific number. The world has changed, the country has changed, so why don't we expand the number of Supreme Court judges? And finally, I don't believe in term limits for elected officials, because you have the right to elect who you want, as long as you want to. Even, I hate to say this, Marjorie Taylor Greene, her constituents, they elected her. That's part of democracy. But for appointed officials, for lifetime appointments, no way. The Supreme Court needs term limits because they are appointed, they're not elected. So that's another bill that I'm working on with Congressman Hank Johnson. And so I'll just stop there and just say that's kind of a little bit of the download, but boy, we've been working hard for you. We've done a lot.
I was going to say, you talk about your staff working 24/7. I don't know that there are more than 24 hours in a day, but it sounds like that's what you do. And so thank you for all of that. You raised a question near and dear to my heart, and you've said a lot about it, but I want to just reinforce it. You talked about the Supreme Court. And I know a lot of us here are concerned with the direction that the court is going, and we know that several of the justices were appointed by Trump. So you talked a little bit about what you're doing to fight back this regression among the conservative justices on the Supreme Court. Anything else you want to say about how what kind of you're seeing the prospect for that on some of the initiatives you mentioned?
I think it's important to also look at this in context of how the corporate sector has corrupted the Supreme Court, and make sure we understand that underlies a lot of these decisions that we see the Supreme Court taking. Also, it's very important to address reform of the Supreme Court, because when you look at the types of measures, what they're ruling on in terms of taking away our constitutional rights. For example, the Dobbs decision, the decision to take away for the very first time the constitutional right, a constitutional right, and that's the right to make one's own health care decisions about one's body in terms of the abortion case. That's what they did, and that's the Supreme Court. They're rolling back voting rights. We've passed the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act twice in the House last year. Of course, the Supreme Court has ruled some very terrible rulings, although a few of the recent ones were modest measures, but we have to pass the John Lewis Voting Advancement Act so that we can make sure we preserve voting rights. They're trying to roll back LGBTQ plus rights, environmental rights, our labor union rights, the right to organize. And I share that in that context because you talk about fighting for our democracy. This is that moment. This is a defining moment, and the Supreme Court is aiding and abetting the decisions and the positions of Donald Trump, who, as you know, is not a Democratic leader, but is moving, if he wins, God forbid, he is more of an autocratic leader, and we have to stop this dead in its tracks, and the Supreme Court is part of that, and we must preserve our democracy right now.
Yeah, you heard it. You heard it right here. Thank you. So as we were just talking about regression, what progressive issues, you've talked a lot about them, but do you feel like there are some that you'd really highlight for your constituents here that they have yet to hear about on the progressive side? On
the progressive side, several. When you look at, again, understand that we're in the minority right now, the Democrats are, and so it's an uphill battle. And we still have the filibuster in the Senate, which I think needs to go. I mean, anything that was enacted after slavery should go. Rule of thumb. to prevent black people from moving forward in this country. And so even in the context, though, I'm working, one, on repealing the authorizations to use military force, the blank check of 2001 that I voted against, and the Iraq authorization. Secondly, I have 49 or so Republicans who voted with me last year to repeal the Iraq authorization. And in fact, the president issued a statement of administrative policy that he would sign that repeal into law. Got it over into the Senate. Senator Kaine took it up. And I was sitting there during the Foreign Affairs Committee. We were able to get it out of the Senate Foreign Affairs Committee, got it to the Senate floor, and about 9 or 10 Republicans supported the repeal of the Iraq authorization. Came back to the House. Now we're working on it again, and this is a glimmer of hope because I have some of my, talk about bipartisanship, a few of my MAGA Republican friends, you can call them friends, such as Chip Roy and others, working to help me get it through the House again. Now we have to get it through the committee, and McCarthy has not said he wouldn't, so we're working to negotiate that now. So that's a glimmer of hope, because remember Iraq, that authorization was based on the lies that there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. There were none. We knew that. And when the authorization came forward, I offered an amendment that said, okay, because we knew, if there are weapons of mass destruction there, let the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency, complete its investigation. Then we'll make a decision. Well, my amendment got 72 votes. But if it had passed, then we wouldn't have lost so many of our brave men and women and the trillions of dollars that we've lost. So we're trying, years later, to get that off the books.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, my question had been about you really coming to national consciousness around the voting, the horrific events of 9/11 and voting against the 2001 authorization for the use of military force. And here you are talking now about that fight continuing.
Continuing. It continues. And you know what, though? It's continued because of the public. People are war weary, and they finally understood that these forever wars will not end until we restore Congress's responsibility and authority in moving forward to declare or not the use of force. And so the public was way ahead of the Congress. And so I've just been there with the public, moving
Speaking
along
for
with
me,
the public.
speaking for us, right? Thank you. So California is in many ways, and we think about this here at the museum, a microcosm of the country in that the issues we face here are magnified and plague many other states and communities across the United States. So what can Congress do to help Bay Area residents with some of the issues we face right here at home, like with crime, housing affordability, and the climate crisis? Well,
first thing Congress should do is to move forward on our common sense gun reform measures. Okay. As in banning assault weapons and banning these weapons of war on the street. That's the first thing we need to do. And the NRA, we need to fight because we know why Congress is not passing that. I serve on the Gun Violence Task Force. And we here in Oakland, everywhere, Berkeley, my whole 12th Congressional District, we have big issues that we have to deal with. But the availability of guns is at the crux of these issues. And so I have also moved forward to, and this started here in my own district when Secretary Becerra was here, Secretary of Health and Human Services, to declare gun violence a public epidemic and a public emergency, public health emergency, because it is a public health emergency. And so the T-Hart Amendment, and I'll just explain that I've been working on this for years, with regard to gun tracing. And the FBI and law enforcement supports this. And this went into law years ago. But what it is, and a lot of people don't know what it is, but do you know the FBI and the police have to destroy records in terms of gun tracing within 24 hours in terms of who purchased what weapons. And so 24 hours, I mean, so I'm trying to, my legislation would give a much longer period of time to trace guns so that we can identify who those guns were. Right. Also, we've got to look at prevention and look at how we address a lot of the underlying, not all, but a lot of the underlying issues of crime, especially in California and in my district. And we've been working, and I believe in federally directed resources, as in earmarks, directing your tax dollars to crime prevention efforts. We were able to get $500,000 a couple of years ago to Youth Alive. I mean, this organization, they're out there on the streets, right? You know Youth Alive, I do. As violence interrupters, trying to make sure they prevent crimes from happening, prevent shootings. And so we have to have a total comprehensive approach to crime. It's got to be, yes, we've got to prosecute, make sure everybody is safe. All communities want to be safe. And we also have to make sure we address the underlying causes of a lot of the young people and what is taking place. And we have to address the availability of guns and get these guns off the streets of America, especially in California. Absolutely. Yeah, Youth Alive does great work and combating a lot of the violence that's now being instigated and perpetrated on social media as well. So, well, you mentioned earmarks. We know you're on a lot of different caucuses and committees, which I can't even imagine how difficult that is to keep up with. But one of your main staff. Yeah, the staff. There we go.
But one of your main roles is serving on the Appropriations Committee. And so can you say a little bit more? You mentioned Youth Alive, but what does that mean, and what work have you done on the Appropriations Committee for the district?
I serve on the Appropriations Committee and the Budget Committee, and the budget sets the general framework and parameters for us on the appropriations, and the quote, exclusive committees have appointees. For instance, if you're on the Appropriations Committee, you're not allowed to be on any other committees unless you get a waiver, but the Appropriations Committee has an appointee to the Budget Committee, so I'm an appointee to the Budget Committee. And I serve on 3 subcommittees of the Appropriations Committee. Now, the Appropriations Committee does not get a lot of media play, but we do a lot of work. And a lot of what you see take place on the positive side and stuff that we defeat is not really seen or visible. And I'll give you a couple of examples. I serve on the, of course, Labor, Health, and Human Services subcommittee of the Appropriations Committee. The COVID vaccines, the healthcare needs, funding community clinics, Asian Health Services, Roots, West Oakland Health Center, La Clinica, the Native American Health Center. I mean, we are able to, and I'm able to direct money into these wonderful community health centers. We have to get, sooner or later, single payer and Medicare for all. That's where we have to go. But in the meantime, I'm working to make sure that we have as accessible, affordable, and quality health care that we can in my district. So that's my job as an appropriator. I'm on the Agriculture Subcommittee. I'm the only Democrat west of the Mississippi on the Agriculture Committee. Now, check that this is the Farm Bill's coming on. We have authorizing, and there are the Democrats on the Authorizing Committee, but I'm on the Appropriations Committee. And when our beloved Supervisor Wilma Chan was with us, we had Secretary Becerra come out, and we did a roundtable. And we talked about food as medicine, you know, because we have so many people with diabetes and other types of diseases and illnesses where medicine would not be needed and the science is there, that food is medicine. So Wilma and I worked very closely together, and on the Appropriations Committee, in her honor, I got a $2 million grant for a pilot on food as medicine, okay? And that's in Wilma's honor. The Healthy Food Financing Initiative, you know, food deserts, right? And so we authorized, and I've appropriated millions of dollars, and now the authorization has sunset or ended, so I'm authorizing and appropriating to make sure we have that funding, because in food deserts and rural communities where we don't have grocery stores, through the Healthy Food Financing Initiative, we have grants for farmers, farm-to-market activities for grocery stores, loans, and grants. So that's part of what I do on the Agriculture Committee. Also, I'm working to prevent the work requirements for SNAP. And SNAP comes through the Agriculture Subcommittee also. So a lot of work I do. And in the Central Valley, you know, food insecurity is huge in our state. Here in Oakland, here in Berkeley, all over my 12th Congressional District, and in the Central Valley, food insecurity, poverty. And so I use my work on the Agriculture Committee to address issues around poverty and eliminating poverty and lifting people out of poverty, and so much more. When you talk about cannabis, if you know, I've led on marijuana justice and cannabis access for our veterans. That comes through the Ag Committee, FDA, mifepristone, some of these drugs. The Agriculture Committee has jurisdiction over FDA. There's a lot there, a lot to download, but it's a big job.
Wow,
And then
3 subcommittees.
The third subcommittee I'm on, which I'm the ranking member, I was chair when Democrats were in the majority, is the State and Foreign Operations Subcommittee. Now, that's like the International Affairs Subcommittee of the Appropriations Committee. And let me tell you, first, I'm the first African American to ever serve on that subcommittee as chair. Very first. So, of course, my lens has been a little different. There are 3 legs to the stool of our foreign and policy and national security: development, diplomacy, and defense. So my subcommittee is responsible for diplomacy and defense. Diplomacy and development. And so what I did during the time that I was the chair is increase the Green Climate Fund. I was at COP27 in Egypt last year. It seems like 2 years ago, but it was last year. Talking about the Green Climate Fund and listening to people from around the world and what the United States needed to do to repair a lot of the damage that we've done throughout the world. That came under, and that comes under, like I say, I'm the ranking member under my jurisdiction. We have, development needs all over the world: hunger, famine relief, embassy security, embassy personnel, all of our diplomatic initiatives, which I, again, see through the lens of, our global leadership, but also respect for other countries and self-determination. And so we have, and I always like to cite this, because I think many of you know where I am on the defense budget, but my budget, development and diplomacy, was probably as high as it's ever been when I was chairing it. That was a little over $60 billion. The Defense Appropriations Subcommittee was close to $800 billion. And so, I was trying to steal some of that money from defense to put it in, which I was able to at least get a nice amount given the past. But still, you see the inequities there.
Right.
And you see why that committee is important, because we've got to continue to fight to have some real national security strategies that employ development and defense and diplomacy as a way to prevent wars and to prevent the use of force. And generals and the military came to me and they said, yes, we support what you're doing, because, we want the seeds of terrorism is sown in despair. Yeah. And then we have the other issue with regard to China and Russia. But you know why they have been able to invest in Africa and the Caribbean and other countries? Because the United States has been missing in action. That's right. We have not had a presence that was forthright in terms of infrastructure, in terms of climate, and their vulnerable populations there, in terms of all of the efforts that we should be engaged in countries on the continent of Africa, in the Caribbean, Eastern Caribbean, in Central and South America, all over the world. We've just been missing in action. And so I tried to, and I'm still trying to shift the orientation of the Appropriations Committee so they understand what I think most of you believe in, is that we have to reorder our national priorities in terms of development, defense, and
yes, absolutely.
Diplomacy.
Much
So
more.
that's what I do.
Much more to those two legs of the stool. Well, speaking of appropriations, we have some organizations here. And so do you want to just say a little bit about this? Because you probably know the acronym, the CFP,
Community Fund, earmarks.
Okay, earmarks.
Community-funded projects. There was a time where, and President Obama, and you all may disagree, but I disagreed with President Obama because he, in his State of the Union speech, when he first became president, said, "I will not sign any bill with an earmark in it." I said, "Oh my God, no, President." And so I was chairing the Black Caucus and wrote a letter. Earmarks, community-funded projects, provide jobs and services, and they close some of the gaps, especially when you have people who don't have access, say, to a health center or health care or health insurance, or for people who don't have access to jobs. I mean, we fund apprenticeship training programs for young people who never would get a chance if I hadn't earmarked through a community project the money for apprenticeship training programs. That's needed. So for those who don't think earmarks are good, worst case makes bad law. Yeah, there were 2 or 3 cases, but I mean, we made sure that the transparency is there. That for those who've applied for earmarks through my office, you guys know how hard it is to get through that. And so I'm really proud of the fact that we have some phenomenal organizations here in my district who have CFP earmarks. And are they here tonight?
We have 5 of them here tonight.
I really want you all to see what your tax dollars are doing with these earmarks.
And please welcome to the stage from the Native American Health Center, Natalie Aguilera.
First, Congresswoman Lee, thank you for having us here this evening. It's an incredible honor to be here. And good evening, everyone. I'm Natalie Aguilera, a proud member of the Oklahoma Choctaw Tribe, and I have the pleasure of serving as the interim Chief Executive Officer at the Native American Health Center. And for those of you not familiar with our organization, we are a community health clinic, and through Indian Health Services, we have a designation as an urban Indian health program. And we opened our doors in 1972 to serve the needs of American Indians who were in the Bay Area due to the federal government's relocation program, and who had little access to mainstream healthcare opportunities. And though our organization remains rooted in our commitment to American Indians and Alaska Natives, our service and programs are open to all. So we serve 14,000 members at 14 different sites. We have a dedicated staff of about 300 people, 100 who are Native American. We think we're one of the largest employers of Native Americans in the Bay Area, if not in Northern California. And we provide primary medical, dental, behavioral health services, and importantly, we have a very robust social service arm of the agency. We've been working on social determinants of health way before it became a buzzword. But we have a broad range of culturally appropriate services for our integrated holistic system of care. Because we know our members are affected by so many environmental factors that might be employment, financial security, access to healthy foods, the Food is Medicine program Barbara Lee was speaking about, community and social issues, and housing. Housing is such a hot topic for our members right now. And not only do we address the social determinants of health, but we are really good at incorporating cultural practices throughout our organization. Through our philosophy that culture is prevention. We know that ones who are connected more to their culture have better health outcomes. So you might think, what does that look like? Well, one thing that we've done recently is we have created a sweat lodge right in the heart of the Fruitvale district in Oakland. Many of our members might not have access to this if they're not able to travel to their tribes, or maybe they're disconnected from our tribes, but now in an urban area, we could provide that service to our members. So 50 years later from opening our doors, our Native American Health Center is still thriving. This past November, the Native American Health Center had the opportunity to honor Congresswoman Lee at our 50th anniversary gala. And we honored her with our inaugural Morningstar Award for her incredible leadership and guidance through our complex world. She reminds us that renewal in life is possible and shows us that we each carry a light to illuminate the darkness. The Morningstar awardees use their powerful light to create paths for those that are lost. And in this respect, Congresswoman Lee has been a pathfinder and guiding light for so many people throughout her career. And this level of community involvement and commitment is demonstrated by Congresswoman Lee, and that's why we're all here today. Her connection to our community's needs have allowed all of us to grow and throughout her tenure. And recently, her commitment to her district and to her community came in the form of a distribution. I was told, don't say earmark, but now I know why.
Listen, you know why.
But came in the form of a distribution or an earmark to the Native American Health Center. And so what will this do for us? The funding is going to support our efforts to build a 5-story mixed-use development project in collaboration with Satellite Affordable Housing, and it will have over 75 units of affordable housing. Yep, very exciting. For us, the integration of primary health care and affordable housing has been a special focus for us for many years. We know housing is a fundamental social determinant of health. If we can ensure our members have safe and stable housing, then we can address not just their symptoms, but also the underlying conditions that impact their health outcomes. In addition to the housing, our newest site will have much-needed expanded services in East Oakland. The site at 3050 International Boulevard in the heart of Oakland's Fruitvale District will feature 20 dental operatories, one of the largest dental clinics around. I'm sad to admit, but for years we've had to turn patients away because we just don't have the capacity to see them in our dental program, or we'll put them on a wait list and they have to wait 6 months, and that's just not okay. So we are excited that we will be able to offer expanded dental services to our community by moving some of those programs over from our current clinic that allows us to expand our medical department. But what I'm really excited about is right now the health center only has, our largest meeting space maybe holds like 35 people. And when I talk about that we have a robust social service program, it's hard to run some of those programs in one small space. So now we are going to have a large cultural community center that could fit up to 300 people. It'll be open to, thank you, open to the community. But you think of all the programming we have, it could be divided into 3 different rooms. We might be able to do workforce development programming in one room, traditional healing with our traditional healing practitioners in another room, and food pharmacy and, in the other space. So it'll really allow us to do the social service programming that we're good at in an expanded way. But the Cultural Center for us will serve as an anchor for the Native Americans throughout the Bay Area region, which has been landless since the forced relocation from their homelands in the 1950s as part of the federal government's Indian Relocation Act that had the goal of assimilation. But we're still here, we're still thriving, and our Cultural Center, yes. And our Cultural Center and the entire building will really be a testament to our culture through Native architecture and designs and aesthetics, but a place that our community could come and really feel a sense of pride. So thank you to Congresswoman Lee for your support. You've helped us get closer to meeting our goal, and I'm happy to share that our groundbreaking is scheduled for January 16th, 139 days from now, but who's counting? But we hope you'll be able to join us for our special day. But this really is our most recent effort to address critical social service gaps, as well as housing shortages in our region. So thank you for your commitment to the Native American Health Center, to East Oakland, to your entire district. You continue to help families in so many ways. The support you've provided our health center will ensure that healthcare, housing, and social services are available and accessible. But thank you for being a leader and a fierce advocate for the underserved and marginalized communities. I draw on your work and dedication, not only as a woman, a mom, but as a change maker in our community. So thank you.
And now, please welcome to the stage from the Construction Trades Workforce Initiative, Megan Nazarino and Juan Calderon.
Good evening, everyone. We are grateful to be the recipient of Congresswoman Barbara Lee's community project funds. My name is Juan Calderon, and I'm the Director of Stakeholder Relations with CTWI, Construction Trades Workforce Initiative. We are the workforce development nonprofit arm of the Building Trades Councils of the East Bay region, where we work to create greater opportunities in the union construction trades for women, communities of color, the formerly incarcerated, youth, and low-income residents. We advocate for labor standards to protect the interests of middle-class families and support contractors in connecting to a well-trained, safe, and diverse workforce. We achieve this through developing strong partnerships, programs, and policies in order to ensure the long-term sustainability of the union construction industry. Our work involves supporting every stakeholder in the construction industry, ranging from job seekers, where we have expanded the industry standard MC3 pre-apprenticeship and test prep programs, to contractors in developing workshops to educate small and minority contractors on how to become high road and work under PLAs. Working with municipalities also to design public programs that incorporate labor standards. We are committed to bridging the gap between organized labor and our industry partners in order to build the next generation of local, diverse, and skilled workers. Since our start in 2018, CTWI has secured over $8 million for high-quality pre-apprenticeship programs. We also established 9 new MC3 pre-apprenticeship programs and have placed over 200 job seekers into union construction careers. In addition to these accomplishments, thank you, yes. In addition to these accomplishments, creating 21st century careers for our youth continues to be a priority for CTWI and our local building trades. In partnerships with school districts like Oakland Unified, we are working together to rebuild pipelines to develop local skilled craftspeople in our community who can meet the infrastructure demands of the future. And now, because of the investment from Congresswoman Lee, these funds will allow us to make a dedicated investment to recruiting and training Oakland residents over the next 3 years. We're working with Oakland Unified School District to launch a high school pre-apprenticeship program in East Oakland in partnership with Castlemont High School. This will provide more opportunities for our youth interested in joining union construction careers. Thank you. We are accountable to the current and next generation of construction workers to build a better, stronger Oakland for everyone. Now I'll hand it over to Megan, who will talk more about our initiatives and plans.
Thank you, Juan. Good evening, everyone. My name is Megan Nazarino. I'm the Senior Program and Data Manager at CTWI. I work with our team to build community-based, effective, data-driven pathways for local community members so that they're better prepared to thrive in union construction careers. This funding will be utilized to plan, design, and develop a construction pathway at Castlemont High School so that Oakland youth will receive the education, preparation, and training necessary to get placed into union construction careers. In this program, students will work with their hands and meet with tradespeople, contractors, and industry partners to learn about and connect with union construction careers post-graduation. They'll learn job readiness skills, safety skills, and construction math necessary to succeed in this field. In addition to funding this high school program, we'll also plan to strengthen partnerships with local CBOs and city departments to build stronger ties with the African American community to ensure that both job seekers and contractors are benefiting from federal and local infrastructure investments. We want to make sure that quality, high-road jobs remain in Oakland. And so we're committed to advocating for strong labor standards and developing more pathways into the trades that target communities of color. We're also committed to providing technical assistance and resources to minority contractors so that people who are living in our community are building in our community. Thank you. We're honored to be a recipient of these funds that will be utilized to create opportunities for the next generation of Oakland builders. We can't do this work alone, and we appreciate Congresswoman Lee and everyone here for sharing this platform with us today. Please come speak with us after this event if you'd like to learn more about us. Thank you.
Please welcome to the stage from Asian Health Services, Julia Liao, Ben Wong, and Tu Quach.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Julia Liao, CEO of Asian Health Services, and Tu Quach, our president, and Ben Wong, our Special Initiatives Director. Wanted to bring all three of us up here because, as Congresswoman Barbara Lee says, it takes a village, and so it takes a village. So we just wanted to share a little bit. We're just so incredibly honored to have this community health project funding to support our critical work at Asian Health Services. Just a little bit about AHS. We're a community health center that has been around. We're actually going to be 50 years old next year.
Wow.
And we've got 500 staff who are providing critical medical, dental, and behavioral health care services. So when we saw what happened in the pandemic to our patients, there's a lot that's happened, a lot of great loss and hardships. We saw our mental health visits more than double, and we saw in our county how anti-Asian hate and violence went up by 300%. So we are so thankful for the support from Congresswoman Barbara Lee because with the funding, we are going to be expanding our mental health services. And we're going to be expanding those services to include trauma-informed care. And that trauma-informed care is going to be Asian languages. So we're excited. Yes, you can applause. Thank you. So we're really excited to have this support because we know that our communities and our patients are suffering so much. And even that, we're going to go beyond because we're going to be providing and establishing a mental health academy so that we can grow a pipeline of our own workforce members from our own community who can provide our mental health counseling and services in language and in culture. So we want to grow our own. And in addition to that, we know that really so much is needed around cross-racial healing and support. And so I'm going to turn it over to Tukwach, who's going to talk more about what we're going to be doing with our cross-healing initiatives.
Yeah, as Julia mentioned, with the rise in anti-Asian hate, we saw the divisive narrative that was out there that actually pitted Asian Americans against our Black brothers and sisters, and we knew that couldn't be true. Right here in Oakland, where Black Panthers were founded, we were not going to be pitted against each other. So it was really important that we partner with West Oakland, another federally qualified health center that we've had a long history with, that actually helped us become a federally qualified health center. West Oakland has been known to serve many of the Black residents in Oakland, and we decided we were going to partner with them to do a community-based participatory research where we would hear from our own community members about their attitudes, their perceptions, and their experiences, as we know each of our community has experienced violence in its own forms. So this project was really meant to inform our future work around creating a mental health toolkit to train our own mental health providers to undo racism, to be an anti-racist organizations as we were providing mental health care to victims of violence. In addition, it was to inform a narrative shift so that we can push back on the divisive narrative that's out there in the media that we're pitting our communities against each other, and to promote more solidarity and more healing within our communities. To date, we've done a series of focus groups and key informant interviews that have really informed us as we set out to do some of these joint projects. And it's been such a healing even for the staff that have been involved in it. So next, I'm going to turn it over to Ben Wong, who's going to talk about the Stop the Hate work.
Good evening. So we know Congresswoman Lee, as you said, public safety and community safety is such a critical issue right now, and we also believe it really takes an all-hands-on-deck approach for comprehensive community safety and violence prevention. Asian Health Services is proud to be a regional lead through a state program called the Stop the Hate program, and through that we provide subgrants and technical support capacity building in the first year to 21 organizations doing great work in multiple counties on community-based safety and prevention work. And in the first year, over 10,000 individuals received victim support services, mental health support, and holistic healing, because we know that healing looks different for every individual in every community. Going into our year 2, we are going to distribute over $20 million to organizations, 44 organizations in 15 different counties. And our role is not only to provide the resources, but we really look forward to engaging our federal partners as well as our city and county agencies and CBO partners to have a coordinated and comprehensive approach to preventing hate, to preventing violence, and to promoting community safety for all of us. Thank you.
Please now welcome to the stage from the Martin Luther King Jr. Youth Center, City Manager of Berkeley, D. Williams Ridley.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. I think we should all just say earmarks are good.
Earmarks are good.
Earmarks are good. I'm Dee Williams Ridley, City Manager with the City of Berkeley, and I had a 10-page speech for you all this evening, but they whispered to me and said, we've got to wrap it up. So I'm going to work my magic and just kind of jump through some of the things that I want to point out for our amazing Congresswoman Barbara Lee for allowing the City of Berkeley to continue some of our amazing projects in the city. Because of you, we've been awarded $1 million for our African American Holistic Resource Center. Thank you. In fiscal year 23, this year, we will be receiving $750,000 for the Martin Luther King Jr. Resource Center, and we call it the YAP Center. And I just can't thank you enough. District Rep for the City of Berkeley and all the other cities. You can hear the amazing programs and projects that people are able to institute because of you. So I want you to know on behalf of our mayor, our vice mayor, Ben Bartlett, who is here this evening, if you can stand. Our Parks Recreation Director, Scott Ferris, over in the corner. Scott, if you can wave again, it takes a village. And Jinsey Bryant, she's sitting there in the middle. Jinsey, can you wave your hand? You don't often get to see the people who actually do the work with our youth. The African American Holistic Resource Center and our Youth Services Center, particularly the latter. Jinsey Bryant, she works with the youth. She builds programs. She takes them from camping to interviews to everything that you can think of that would help a young person get up in life. So I want to recognize her because she's doing the work on the ground. So because of you, she's able to continue this. So very quickly, I want to share a little bit about the facilities and so that folks can know a little bit about what we have going on. So in terms of the Martin Luther King Youth Services Center, at this location, we run free after-school programs, summer programs for middle school students. It includes tutoring, life and job skills training, and mentoring. We have other free programs such as Young Divas, From Boys to Men, no, not your Boys to Men DVD, no, not that one, but From Boys to Men, how we get our young boys to become men. Particularly, a lot of these programs serve our Black and brown community, and I'm very proud of that as an African-American woman raising 3 young boys and 3 young girls. Yes, I have a family of 6. But I am proud of that, and I am extremely proud to be the city manager of Berkeley and have the honor of having you lead our city. So I am going to end there because I was told that this 10-page document could not be read. But thank you so much.
Thank you. Please welcome to the stage our final CFP awardee of today from the Covenant House of California, Amber Johnson.
Well, I'm delighted everybody else was so expressive because I was filling in at the last minute and had like 8 sentences. So I've expanded it a little. Covenant House, first of all, I'm Amber Johnson. I'm Director of Prevention and Learning for Covenant House, California. And prior to this, I was the Director of Dreamcatcher Youth Services for 10 years. I mention that because you've been such an incredible support for Dreamcatcher over the years also, and I want to always thank you for that. We're with Covenant House now, so we're all one. Covenant House serves homeless and trafficked youth between 13 and 24 years old. We provide case management, medical support, legal support, job and school support, but most of all, we supply beds, safety, food, and friendship. This work is so important. The separation between homeless youth and trafficked youth can be as thin as one more time without a meal, one more night without a bed, or one more hour alone and frightened. The separation between trafficked youth and youth that we've lost forever is equally slim. That same amount of time with a bed and food and safety can turn that opportunity that they need to become active members of our community and leaders so often. Safety and basic needs change lives. We see it every day, and it's extraordinary. The smallest amount of support for these youth enable them to find a way to their future in the community. I just want to thank you again. This year, Covenant House will be doubling the beds and starting the beginning of opening even more transitional beds, which we all know are desperately needed. And I also, this year, we have really turned our focus to young men of color in our program. You know, I've worked in trafficking for 20 years. We've been worried about the girls for 20 years, and when we started to really look and ask ourselves, what is a real holistic solution, we realized we were leaving our young men in the dust, even though they are, in fact, in the middle of an emergency public health crisis in terms of their welfare and outcomes. So we have started a focus and a lot of innovative work, and I hear miracles every week. So thank you so, so much.
Wow, that
Wow.
is amazing work.
I'm telling you, and there's so many more, but this is why I love being an appropriator and being on the. This is what it's about. Like
I think
say,
you
don't
may
get
be
a lot
the-
of media about it, but we're changing lives and helping to change this.
I think you
community
may
for
be the
better.
most, the best appropriator I've ever seen. And what great work. Thank you all for what you're doing for our community. So we know we are hitting time, but there are a couple questions that came, and there are a few of the ones that came from constituents you've already addressed so well in your earlier comments. So there are just a couple that I'm going to ask you that I don't think we fully touched on. One you mentioned right at the beginning, but I want to have you come back to it. This is coming from a constituent, so the question is, how close are we to getting the votes necessary in the House to pass voting rights legislation? This continues to be a top priority and concern in protecting our democracy.
What I have to say about the voting rights, John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act, is a couple of things. One is we have passed it in the House twice, 2 times, and in fact, it gets stuck in the Senate.
So that's why you need to go over there,
And that's why.
right?
Good point. Smart woman. And that's why we need to end the filibuster. And I'm going to help in that because it's important that we have members in the community around the country weigh in with their members of the Senate and say this has got to go. Because otherwise, with the filibuster, we're impeding democracy. We're impeding the constitutional rights that people have based on the fact that they're Americans, and they're being eroded. And so that's where we are, and we're going to keep at it until it's done. And that's what I have to say about him. John Lewis, he was a phenomenal man. He came here, of course, to Oakland and Berkeley and the 12th Congressional District several times with my young people at the Martin Luther King Freedom Center. And Congressman Lewis, he was almost killed fighting for the right to vote on the Edmund Pettus Bridge. And I was able to, for 18 years, take young people from my Martin Luther King Freedom Center to go and march across that Edmund Pettus Bridge with John Lewis, recognizing the importance of John Lewis and those freedom fighters and those foot soldiers who fought, and some died, to get us to the point where everyone had the right to vote, including my own family. I come from Texas, born and raised in El Paso. And so it's a shame and disgrace. It's immoral, it's anti-democratic, and we've just got to get it done. But the House, again, has passed it. Of course, we have, Democrats are not in the majority this time, if you know what I mean. And so but we've just got to get it done.
And we know you will keep fighting for that.
Yep.
This was one I was very curious about as well, and you were just mentioning it. And you mentioned it earlier in some of the efforts you were describing, but can you talk about how you've worked across the aisle in this current climate to create and pass important legislation? And how do you just do it? How do you just cope and go to work? Let's face it, you know?
Well, my background is psychiatric social work. I'm a psychotherapist by profession. So I listen and I try to find common ground. And I'm going to give you a couple of examples that are very current. Of course, I have been fighting for years since our beloved Ron Dellum's passing. You know Ron. Give Ron a round of applause. And he was a phenomenal leader. And Ron, after he passed, and I worked for him for 11 years, I was an intern for him. And I said, I've got to do something that will acknowledge the legacy of this great man. I said, but how am I going to do that with Republicans? So I decided, again, going back to my role on the Appropriations Committee. Now, for those of you who don't know, Ron was always, he was a former Marine. He was the first African-American chair of the Armed Services Committee. And he never voted for his own budget as chair because the military budget was too excessive. It had nothing to do with our national security, but fueling the military-industrial complex and weapons and arms dealers. So Ron always said, you know, no more funding. We have to get this in balance, like I'm trying to do with my $100 billion cut, which needs to happen. But Ron was known for that, and he went to Congress on an anti-war platform. Fast forward to Ron passes away, and I'm saying, I've got to do something. I said, I know what I'm going to do, because Ron was so respected, had so much integrity, that even the really conservative Republicans respected him, even though they disagreed. So I established I'll tell you in a minute what, the Ronald V. Dellums Fellowship for STEM education for underrepresented children, young people. Okay.
That's awesome.
So last year, as an appropriator, it took me several years since Ron passed to get it. I got $5 million, $30,000 a year for a young person, guaranteed job after the fellowship. But guess where it's housed? In the Pentagon. It's over there in the Defense Department. And I share that because it's a testament to Ron's integrity. He was so much against what they were doing, but they respected him over there. And so when I went to the Republicans in the Appropriations Committee and on the floor, when I went to the Pentagon and said, I want to do this in Ron's name with his legacy. You all know who he is. And they said, yes, let's do it. And so that's what one of my pride and joys in terms of honoring Ron, but it was a bipartisan effort that now is really helping our low-income and minority kids with the STEM program that would provide for $30,000 a year. $5 million last year, hopefully $3 million this year. So.
That's a great example. And
that's just one. I have a lot, but it's hard to work, but you have to find where you can work together.
well, yeah, that background in, what did you say? Social,
Yeah, I have my MSW from UC Berkeley, go Bears,
go Bears.
and my BA in psychology from Mills College.
Mills College, yes, indeed. So really the most pressing question of the evening, I think, is coming here, which is, are you going to the Beyonce concert?
I'm here. I love Beyonce, and this was, you guys have to see my video, Before I Let Go, right? It was done a couple of years ago, but I love that song. But my staff had me out dancing to Before I Let Go. So it's on whatever it's on, my website. And Beyonce is, not only is she a wonderful entertainer and beautiful woman, but she has a social consciousness that's really remarkable. And I always think of her when I think of my bill in terms of social justice, equity in the arts. And so, but I'm here and I can't go to the concert because I'm working, and I will continue to work for my district. And I have an aunt who's 102 years old who's doing fine, and I'm looking out for her and all of that. So.
Well, Beyonce needs to come see you, is what I think. And with that, we are going to wrap it up. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Congresswoman Lee, for all you do for
Lori
this
did the heavy
district.
lifting tonight. Thank you.
All right, look
and
at
my
this.
Staff. Where's all my staff? If
Thank
they
you,
could
thank
come
you.
up here so you can see them. Where are you guys? Come on. Yeah, everybody. Brad, get everybody up here. Staff is still here from D.C., Oakland. How are you? All our community projects, leaders who are changing this district. Thank you all very much for.
Thank you, and I think our community groups will be outside, and the staff from Congresswoman Lee's office will also be outside. Thank you. Have a good night. Stay safe. Come back to the Oakland Museum of California.
Thank you all. Hey.